off and say good morning, everybody. I'm Mark Axford, and welcome to the 32nd Annual Western Turbine Conference. I thank you for inviting me back again as your speaker. A tradition every year since 2007. I'm wearing my Western Turbine user shirt from Vegas 2019 and ready to go. We've got a lot to talk about today. First, we'll review the 2021 gas turbine orders. Aeroderivative turbines had a great year. We'll also talk about what's going on with wind and solar and get into the details of the lithium market and its effect on batteries and the electric car business. We'll talk about LNG and hydrogen for gas turbines. And finally, a few words about carbon capture and global warming. During 2021, orders for gas turbines were down overall, but the vitality of our aeroderivative segment really helped GE. At this time, I'm going to turn over the controls to Tony Brough of Dora Partners. Tony will talk in detail about the turbine orders, and then I'll be back in about 25 minutes. So Tony, now it's your turn to take it away.
Very good, thank you. And I will begin. I appreciate that, Mark, and I always enjoy your entree for the discussion. I'm just going to start sharing my presentation. Very good. I hope everyone can hear me. I believe I'm certain you can. So I've been now presenting the industrial market update for, I think, 5 or 6 years, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to all of the attendees at WTUI. It's always very interesting and fun to talk about how things are moving and changing. As Mark said, if you look at the orders in 2021, they were down about 12% on a megawatt basis, but they were actually up 8.5% on a unit basis. And there's certainly a lot of credit can go to the aeroderivative activity that happened in 2021 to account for that. Many people ask me, why do I always go back to referring to 2012 in terms of a market understanding? The reason I do that is I personally feel that 2012 was pretty much the highlight year for gas turbines in the industry for the last 50 to 60 years. Now that does discount or doesn't take into account the boom years of 1999 and 2000, maybe even 2001. But I kind of think of those 3 years as highly unusual or abnormal order activity years. But if you look on a normalized basis, 2012 was really the highlight year for gas turbines. And since 2012, unit orders are down 61% per year and down 48% on megawatts. So without a doubt, the marketplace has changed a good deal over the last decade. I present this same chart pretty much every year, and what it is it's the table on the left shows all of the aeroderivative models that I track in the marketplace by model. The blue colored units are both General Electric and Baker Hughes engines. I refer to GE and Baker Hughes together because, as we all know, they are close partners on the aeroderivative business, with GE handling the electric power utility market and Baker Hughes handling the oil and gas market for these engines. So I give them both credit for the sizes of their fleets and their activity in the marketplace. I always think it's important to see which engines have had the most success. And I think it goes without saying that the LM2500 continues to be, the 2500 plus continues to be the strongest gas turbine in the aeroderivative world and has been for a very long time. The LM2500 Plus has captured 33.3% of the market over the last 5 years, and that's including Russian engines. So very, very strong gas turbine in the marketplace, and it's had an compound annual growth rate of about 3.1% over that 5-year period. There are other engines that have done reasonably well, but I just wanted to highlight that. If you actually look at, I tend to like to look at things from a long term and not just what happens in one given year. So if you look at the Baker Hughes GE share in 2020, it was about 42.7% for a 5-year share. And in 1 year, their 5-year share increased to 47.1%. So a very strong amount of activity for the GE and Baker Hughes teams over the last 5 years. Just trying to advance my slide. Okay. I also tried to take into account, well, how large is the aftermarket? And if you look at these engines combined for aeroderivatives, there's about a $2.7 billion per year overhaul and repair aftermarket. So it's a rather significant place to be participating. Just a little bit of market share dynamics. If you take into account all aeroderivative activity for the last 6 years, you can see the GE share line, GE Baker Hughes share line has bounced around 50% down to 31%. But this last year, it was up to 69%, including Russian engine activity. So very strong performance. Overall, aero unit orders were up 11%. But if you take into account only the Western OEMs, the activity was up 110%. And the GE Baker Hughes team retains a share of 80 to 90% of Western OEM activity. And you can see that over here on the right, if you take into account only Western OEMs, the GE Baker Hughes share has ranged between 60 and 82% on a very consistent basis. I like to talk about long-term trending because it's always, in my opinion, very dangerous to look at what happens in one single year. We all know that if you're out there on a campaign trying to sell some engines, so let's say into a new oil and gas pipeline, and you are about to get an order on December 31st for 10 engines, and it slips by 1 day to January 1st, your year looks really bad only due to a 1-day shift. So I always say, look at the long term, don't look at what happens in one given year. So this is what I call my before and after charts, and this is for the electric power utility sector. You can see here what the share of aeroderivative gas turbines has been by region over the years 2008 through 2014, and then how that share has changed in the last 7 years. You can see that only Africa and the Middle East have had what I would call long-term share growth. So you can see that Africa, Asia Pacific, and the Middle East has had share growth. But in terms of overall market growth, only the Middle East saw long-term growth. And there was a slight improvement in Europe and North America in my long-term trending, which I'm pointing here to. You look at the oil and gas market, you can again see that North America actually had some very strong trends in the last 7 years. Its share of the market was up 12%, and its overall market size is up 119%. And this is reflected in the quantity sold. 53 units were sold in this 7-year period, and then 116 units were sold in the period from 2015 to 2021. So very strong improvement for North America, and we know a lot of that went to the oil and gas industry. Then I also look at the same information in terms of what I call the oil and gas supply chain. So in other words, where are these gas turbines going? And you can see that downstream improved its share of the marketplace by about 1%, and upstream improved its share by 9%, and the midstream market actually declined in terms of share. But overall, all three segments were down significantly over the last 7 years. And that's also seen up here in the top. You can see large reductions in overall market change. Now just a quick chart on aeroderivative orders for the last year. North America, and I know Mark is going to talk a lot about this, and he'll have all sorts of very interesting and insightful comments about what happened in the North American market last year. But the LM6000 was a huge winner in 2021, without a doubt. Aeroderivative orders were up over 300%, both on orders and megawatts for North America. And the GE share was 86% of all orders. You look at the rest of the world, or the whole world, the aero unit orders were up 1%. Aero megawatts were up 31%, and the GE share was 81%. Now, just a quick perspective of my view of the world a little bit. Last year, I shared with you that regardless of your political persuasion or where you live or whatever, if you look at all the different scenarios for what's going to happen the next 25 to 30 years, there's going to be a lot of renewable expansion, without a doubt. Doesn't matter what happens, wind and solar capacity, under almost every political or geopolitical scenario is rather strong growth. But I am a firm believer that industrial gas turbines have a strong role to play, even into the late parts of this long-range forecast. So where is it? Hydrogen, in my opinion, is what I call the other natural gas. Now, is it a market that's going to grow rapidly? Absolutely not. Is it going to overwhelm the world over the next 10 years? Absolutely not. Fossil fuels will play a strong role for the next 10 to 15 years, without a doubt. But there are underlying activities that are very strong in terms of what's going to happen in terms of the utilization of hydrogen as a fuel. You can see that the amount of electrolyzer installations planned or announced, so these are installations that are going to convert water to hydrogen, is a huge amount of activity around the world over the next 10 years. And if you actually look at factual activity, there's already 389 hydrogen development projects under construction, another 489 projects that are in the feasibility or concept stage. And 50 of the projects up here anticipate using ammonia as the final fuel selected. So it would be very unwise, and I know that all of the gas turbine OEMs in the world are looking hard at the use of hydrogen and ammonia as a fuel. Maybe not for tomorrow, but over the long run, it would be very unwise to dismiss hydrogen. obviously there's a lot of challenges over the next 25 years to get from point A to point B in terms of its utilization. So in summary, orders for gas turbines on a quantity basis were up, but down on megawatts. Aeroderivatives and small gas turbines did reasonably well, but I expect megawatt recovery will be coming in the next year and the coming years. The GE Baker Hughes team maintains a strong aeroderivative market share with the LM2500 Plus as one of the most popular gas turbine models ever manufactured. LM6000 recovered its presence in 2021 despite very strong popularity of the Siemens SGT 800. The LM9000 has good long-term potential, but we're unsure what will be happening given the current conditions in Russia. Long-term order activity is down, but there is a long-term potential for gas turbines with fossil fuels and with hydrogen, ammonia, and methanol. And I believe those three fuels will be key to extending gas turbine life long after Mark and I are gone. Renewable energy capacity additions will be dramatic over the next 20 to 30 years under almost any foreseeable scenario, and gas turbines will have a role to play. LNG expansion and a shorter term response to fuel fossil dependence on Russia may also improve gas turbine activity in the next 1 to 5 years. With that, I will turn it over to my colleagues on the team.
Hey, Tony.
Thank you.
So let's see, I've got control back up on this page again, and I'm going to just go right to this point and say, where'd my notes go again? Scott, help me out one more time, please. I'm not as good at this as you are.
The very bottom right. Click on the.
I got it now. It got turned off in the handing back and forth, but it's back again now. So you can see the downward trend, and nobody likes to be told your business is in a downward trend. But it's obvious. We've all seen the decay over the last 6 years. We can't blame this on COVID. What used to be a 60 gigawatt market for gas turbines is now a 30 gigawatt market. Companies are getting out of the gas turbine business because it's no longer growing. In 2020, Siemens Energy became a standalone company. Its parent, Siemens AG, spun off the gas turbine business. Similar restructuring has occurred at GE and Baker Hughes. Baker is a separate company again, trades on the New York Stock Exchange. GE Oil and Gas, gone, now part of Baker. In November, GE announced its plans to split into 3 publicly traded companies. GE will spin off its healthcare and energy business, and the remaining GE will be all aviation. Mitsubishi is focused on its 400 megawatt gas turbines for combined cycle. So don't be surprised if you hear about a spinoff of the Pratt & Whitney aeroderivative business. Regulation of NOx and carbon monoxide emissions started decades ago. Our engineers figured out how to reduce emissions, first by water injection, and then a modern day miracle, the dry low NOx combustor. These were affordable improvements, but things got less coherent when CO2 was declared to be a pollutant. We know how to remove CO2 from turbine exhaust, but it's not economical with current technology. Today's green movement against any type of oil and gas project is passionate, almost a religion for its followers. The objective now is to stop all new production of oil and gas, ramp up wind and solar as quickly as possible. Frankly, ramp up more quickly than possible. Natural gas is no longer seen as a bridge fuel. There is no time for a transition. The planet will be destroyed if we don't make massive reductions to CO2 emissions immediately. Now, try not to think of the words I've just said as whining. I'm simply explaining how banks are being lobbied to stop lending to oil and gas projects. During 2021, Siemens announced the permanent closing of the Olean, New York compressor factory. They'd been making compressors in Olean since 1912, and my first job out of college was at this factory when it was called Dresser Clark. Everybody saw this closure coming. After the Siemens Energy spinoff in 2021, they announced a plan to eliminate 7,000 jobs by 2025 worldwide. There just was not enough compressor business to fill all of the compressor factories in the world. This, in some ways, reminded me of the Stewart and Stevenson packaging shop closure in 2016 and the closure of the Brough generator factory in England during 2018. If investors conclude there is no outlook for growth, factories get closed. U.S. subsidies for wind and solar are accomplishing their goals. Subsidize something and you get more of it. Renewable energy is the fastest growing component of the U.S. electric supply. We're at about 20% renewable energy today and on a path to 33% by 2030. If this happens, renewables will produce more electricity than gas turbines. But this can only happen with continued subsidies for wind and solar, coupled with penalties on fossil fuel. Experts say that solar will become the largest component of U.S. renewable energy by 2040. That's an ambitious forecast, and I have little confidence in any 20-year forecast. But near term, wind is still the biggest player in the U.S. for renewable energy. There's currently a cloud hanging over U.S. solar development. The U.S. Department of Commerce is investigating tariff avoidance by Chinese panel makers. They moved portions of their manufacturing operations to Vietnam, Thailand, and Cambodia in order to dodge tariffs. Solar projects valued at billions of dollars have been put on hold. Import tariff penalties up to 250% could be imposed retroactively on panels already delivered into the USA. It may take a presidential executive order to save these solar projects for 2022 and 2023, so keep your eye on this one. Germany closed down 8 of its 17 nuclear reactors in 2011 after Fukushima. They pledged to close the remainder by the end of 2022. I don't understand why the green energy movement does not love nuclear power with zero carbon dioxide emissions. But such are the politics in Germany and the USA, but not in France. So go figure. Germany's plan is to get to 65% renewable energy by 2040. Two big questions are, one, can Germany keep the grid stable during an extended period, like winter, of low wind or low solar? And two, will spot LNG be available at any price, say $40 a million BTU when needed? Say 65% renewable energy. What could possibly go wrong? Germany is betting big on wind to replace its coal and nukes, so their wind power must be doubled. Many experts worry that attempting to operate a large grid with 65% renewable energy is just too risky. The chance of a grid outage is too high. Interesting to note, during 2021, RWE, one of Germany's largest electric utilities, purchased 11 GE LM2500 Express gensets for balancing power. The big offshore wind markets in the US are in New England and New York State. Generous subsidies are being offered for Atlantic wind projects. The North Sea is ground zero for offshore wind in Europe, mainly for the UK and Germany. Wind turbines are getting bigger and taller. There is some technical economy of scale, but construction and maintenance offshore is very expensive. But no problem, just raise the subsidy and add it to the price of electricity. So let's circle back to gas turbines. We'll talk about heavy frame gas turbines and aeroderivative. Then let's review the lessons learned from the Texas storm of February 2021. Then on to batteries, lithium, electric cars and Tesla, hydrogen, carbon capture, and a forecast for 2022. 25 more slides, 25 more minutes. Pay attention, there might be a test at the end. 2021 was a tough year for the heavy frame division of General Electric. GE sold only one frame gas turbine in the USA, and GE would have lost its worldwide #1 market share position to Siemens without the huge influx of orders for LM2500 and LM6000 gas turbines. In this data summary, all aeroderivative orders for 2021 are shown. I've highlighted the LM2500 and LM6000 turbines. Also note, most of the Siemens aero orders were for the Trent and the trailer-mounted A45. These models were discontinued by Siemens later in the year, so you might say that Siemens had a clearance sale. Want to know why GE sold so many aeroderivatives in 2021? I know why. It was fear. Utility executives all over the country, all over the world, saw what happened to Texas during February of 2021. And in a quiet moment, when no one was listening, they said to themselves, that could have been us. Power grids are becoming more fragile. More backup and balancing generation is needed. Are you familiar with the LM2500 Express? It's a new product at GE. Think of it as a trailer-mounted LM2500, but instead of mounting all of the components onto wheels or onto a concrete slab, the foundation is set on simplified piers. The Express is less expensive to manufacture than a TM, less expensive to install than a conventional unit, and if desired, it can be relocated, although not every month like a TM. There were two important LM2500 Express wins for GE during 2021, 11 units for German utility RWE, and this will be the first Express installation. It goes online during 2022, and also 6 units for Colorado Springs Municipal Power installed at a coal plant site. That installation will happen during 2023. Some other notable orders for GE aeroderivatives during 2021, a block of 10 LM6000s for TVA in Tennessee, and some trailer-mounted 2500s for sites in Louisiana and California. The California win might be the last gas turbines ever shipped to California until the next crisis, but it made me proud to see California turn to GE when the chips were down, and GE delivered on time. Salt River owns a plant in Arizona called Coolidge that already has 10 LM6000 PC gensets. How fine to see an additional order for 4 more units and more to come, so stay tuned on that one. Finally, you can see an order for Wattbridge, a pro-energy company. Hold this word Wattbridge in your mind. I'll get to it again in about 5 minutes. I update this LM6000 fleet chart every year for my customers because it goes back to 1990 when the first LM6000s were ordered. There were some spectacular orders in 1999 through 2001, but then the market crashed. It recovered, went through another boom, and then tapered off to almost nothing in 2020, at least for new unit orders. The 26 LM6000s ordered during GE during 2021 is the most since 2014. Now let's talk about Pro Energy. You've never seen this data before. Pro Energy refurbishes LM6000 gensets and resells them on a turnkey basis. It's a sensitive topic with GE, but here's an observation. GE is in the LM6000 gas turbine engine business, and Pro Energy is in the LM6000 power plant business. Pro Energy refurbishes used LM6000 engines and gensets and sells them to customers on a turnkey basis with a warranty. This has made the LM6000 product more affordable, especially for customers that run less than 1,000 hours per year. After delivering 8 LM6000 peakers to customers in Texas, Pro Energy created Wattbridge to own and operate peaking plants in the ERCOT deregulated market. Highlighted above are the 38 LM6000 units that Wattbridge has in service or under construction in Texas. Pro Energy will ship more LM6000 packages to Wattbridge during 2023, and this is without the largest LM6000 fleet worldwide. A brief call out to Wartzilla, not part of the gas turbine business, but a feisty competitor. Wartzilla had a respectable year in North America, bagging orders in Omaha, Ontario, Canada, and Mexico. But noteworthy, Wartzilla has invented a new business, selling packaged lithium-ion battery storage modules in a joint venture with Hyundai. Quite a unique supplement to their large bore engine business. File this one under the odd couple, but don't laugh, they're getting orders. And now dial back to the winter of 2021 in Texas. You saw it on TV. There were 3 days of rolling blackouts across the state. ERCOT fell short of demand by 20,000 megawatts. Oops. Of course, there was a witch hunt. Every politician twisted the story to assign blame elsewhere. Choose the devil you hate the most. It was a nasty ice storm. Technicians could not get to power plant sites with all the roads glazed over. And at the end, most of the ERCOT board was fired. The CEO resigned. Penalties were established going forward for lack of proper winterization. And the natural gas supplies for power plants were fortified and protected. February 2022 was better. Texas had a normal winter. There were no major power interruptions. We got lucky. And the politicians proclaimed themselves genius. The interim CEO at ERCOT today is Brad Jones. He has roots in ERCOT and was brought in as a steady hand to get things in order. Brad spearheaded the winterization program after taking the job following the storm. ERCOT is adding a lot of battery storage and has enabled wires companies to own emergency generation at key substations. At least 6 TM2500s are now installed at substations in and around Houston. Brad also thinks there's an opportunity for crypto mining in West Texas using surplus wind from late night. The megawatt load from crypto can be disconnected when demand or price is high. I'm not a big fan of crypto, but it has one positive attribute for sure. No subsidies are required, at least not for now. The big headline from Baker Hughes in 2020 was first LM9000 order, 12 compressor sets and 8 generator sets for an LNG complex in Siberia. Bad news now with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. It looks like sanctions might put a halt to this project. How could anybody have planned for this? Would it even have been possible to get political risk insurance for a project in Siberia? Another sad LNG story, this one from Canada with 8 LMS100 compressor sets. Not sure if some or all of the turbines were delivered to the site, but the construction by Fluor was approximately 50% complete when investors pulled the plug during mid-2021. The cost of the gas feedstock and delivering LNG into Asia lost its economic viability during the construction period. If they could have held on till March of 2022, this story might have ended differently. The likelihood of resuming construction is minuscule. Projects with LNG are risky. Who would have thought this project could fail after coming so far? But on a positive note, there are 7 major LNG plants in the US running flat out today. Most LNG is delivered under long-term contracts to Europe and Asia. Spot prices peaked during the Russian invasion at over $40 a million BTU. Of these operating plants, 4 have applications pending for expansion and modification, but these applications and permits are not being expedited. It's hard to understand our promise to help Europe get more LNG without pulling out the stops on the necessary US government approvals. By the way, there's a large LNG project just beginning construction in Louisiana. The company is called Tellurian. They're expecting major funding later this year, and the plant is designed to utilize 26 LM6000 turbines for power gen and mechanical drive. On to batteries and electric cars, which we have followed carefully at Western Turbine for the last 10 years. Personal cars account for about 50% of the world demand for oil. If electric cars become affordable, demand for electricity goes up, demand for gasoline goes down. In 2021, about 8% of vehicles sold worldwide were plug-in electric, but only 3% in the USA. Battery prices had been falling about 25% per year en route to the magic price of $100 per kilowatt hour to achieve cost competitiveness with gasoline-fueled cars. The cost curve leveled out in 2021, and in 2022, we're now expecting an increase in the cost of an automotive battery pack. This is primarily because of higher prices for lithium and nickel. We may never see a $100 battery pack. The price of lithium has gone up by a factor of 10 during the last 15 months. We know where the lithium deposits are located, but opening new mines and refining plants takes time and large capital investment. China has ramped up production of electric cars, causing a lithium supply deficit. For 2022, the deficit is about 26,000 tons, but will grow to 300,000 tons by 2030. Lithium cost is driving up the price of all electric cars. You'll hear people say, China has all the lithium. Not true. China has ample supplies of lithium. Australia and Chile have the big mines, but raw lithium is not the problem. To make batteries, lithium must first be refined to produce lithium carbonate. China has the refineries and the battery pack production lines. Less than 20 years ago, the US was dependent on imported oil. Then the US fracking revolution created an abundant supply of oil and gas. North America has only minor deposits of lithium. China has large reserves of lithium, but limited supplies of oil and gas. So it's logical for China's energy policy to favor lithium-ion batteries and electric cars. But with China's grip on the production of battery packs for the foreseeable future, is it wise for the US to be subsidizing electric cars? Tesla is currently the market share leader in the plug-in battery electric vehicle segment. They built almost 1 million cars in 2021. Tesla is now operating factories in China, Germany, and 3 plants in the USA, and Tesla expects to build 1.3 million cars during 2020. The market share statistics do not tell the whole story. What's amazing is that Tesla is selling expensive cars into China, the single biggest market. The best-selling battery electric car in China is the SAIC Baiyun 100. It's a two-seat mini model and sells for about $13,000. The Tesla Model 3 basic unit, stripped down, sells for $44,000 in China and $48,000 in the US. Tesla still owns the cool factor. Against all odds, they changed the automotive business. Next act for Texas, the light truck market in the USA. The Tesla Cybertruck will compete against the entrenched Ford F-150, now available as an electric F-150. Texas just opened its Austin Gigafactory more than a year behind schedule and is ready to do battle with the Ford E-150 and the E-Mustang. These are the two most lucrative brands at Ford, and Tesla can expect an intense battle. Last year, I walked you through the blue hydrogen, green hydrogen scenarios. In short, producing green hydrogen is much more expensive, but green hydrogen brings joy to the Green New Deal crowd because it does not utilize methane as a feedstock. Running turbines on hydrogen has become the new mania. It's technically feasible. We know how to do it, but it's not economically feasible. Tony and I disagree on the outlook for hydrogen. There are dozens of ongoing projects and testing programs for hydrogen, but in my judgment, hydrogen will not become a mainstream fuel for gas turbines. Perhaps a niche market will evolve for blending 5 to 10% hydrogen into the gas supply in selected regional markets. Removing CO2 from the exhaust stream is 80-year-old technology using an amine absorption system. It's 92% effective, but too expensive. Exxon is promoting new technology for carbon capture and storage. They're investing $3 billion of shareholder money on this idea. It has not been very well received by opponents who prefer that oil and gas not be produced at all. I have trouble following this logic. If natural gas can be produced and combusted with carbon capture, why should it not be used as an economical fuel? So before I go, I wanted to recommend a book for vacation reading, if anyone still gets vacation. The book Unsettled by Stephen Koonin, who served in the Obama Department of Energy, talks about climate change and global warming, but it's a perspective different than what you might have seen. There's lots of charts, graphs, and data, and some of the ideas put forward you might not agree with. Others you will. That's why it's called Unsettled. So keep that in the back of your head. And now let's see what we've got for a forecast going forward. I'll tell you what, I didn't forecast oil at $100 a barrel, nor inflation at 8 to 10%, nor a war in Ukraine, but let's see how we do with gas turbines. I think 2022 will be another down year for large combined cycles. There are not a lot of active projects in the pipeline, and it appears that the United States and Europe will be moving into a recession. I'm projecting a 10% decline overall megawatt basis, and I think there's some momentum for smaller gas turbines to do better. Engines like the LM2500, LM5000, and the Siemens SGT 800 could have as good a year next year as this year if some of the restrictions are released on oil and gas production orders. So that's my prediction for 2021 and 2022. The future ain't what it used to be, but I am looking forward to seeing all of you live in person in San Diego during March of 2023. Thanks for listening in, guys.